Some clearance across Northern Ireland, so maybe some sunny spells here as we head through the afternoon. Temperatures again between 11 and 14 degrees Celsius. Our weather front continues to just clear its way eastwards, possibly some heavy persistent rain for eastern areas of the UK as we head throughout the day on Thursday. Some sunshine though further west, so unsettled through the middle part of the week, but high pressure builds back in again in time for Good Friday and the Easter bank holiday weekend.
Today we're looking at the state of British politics.
Asking, is technology ruining football?
Are we too obsessed with our phones?
Helen from Hull wants to know, how hot's the planet going to get?
And we'll explain why prices keep going up and up.
Also, Rach, did you know space has its own smell?
Really? What of? The world is fast moving and can be confusing.
So let's talk about it.
5 Live Breakfast with Rachel and Rick. Listen on BBC Sounds.
People are travelling again, heading back out on the road and rediscovering their wanderlust.
Exploring new destinations and cultures, making fresh friends and creating memories that will last a lifetime.
That's why at the Travel Show, we're expanding our horizons too. And wherever we go,
we want you to come with us. Now that might make for an awful lot of excess baggage, but we think you're worth it.
The Travel Show. Watch now on BBC iPlayer.
Today at 1, more strikes in schools in England after teachers overwhelmingly reject the government's pay offer.
The number of our members that rejected the government's pay offer is 191,319.
The ballot result announced this morning means there'll be one-day strikes at the end of April and the beginning of May.
We also need the government to listen, so unfortunately if they come back with a derisory offer like that, we still need to stand up and be counted.
I'm hoping there'll be a lot more than that if we have to have more than that, because I'm absolutely willing to fight this to the end.
Meanwhile, passport office workers begin 5 weeks of strike action with a warning it could mean delays in getting new passports. And our other main stories this lunchtime. Intense security as the man convicted of murdering Liverpool schoolgirl Olivia Pratt-Corbell arrives at court for sentencing. A 26-year-old woman is detained after the killing of a military blogger who supported Russia's war in Ukraine. And remembering mobile phones the size of bricks. It is 50 years ago today since the first call was made on one.
And coming up on the BBC News Channel, sacking season in full flow. Chelsea and Leicester's search for a new manager is underway after saying goodbye to Graham Potter and Brendan Rodgers.
Good afternoon. Schools in England are facing more strike action after members of Britain's biggest teaching union overwhelmingly rejected a government pay offer. 98% of National Education Union members who voted turned down a one-off £1,000 payment on top of a wage rise. Well, the union's leaders have described the offer as insulting, while the government called it fair and reasonable. There will now be 2 more days of strike action on April the 27th and May the 2nd. Our education editor, Branwen Jeffries, reports now from the union's conference in Harrogate.
Arriving this morning at the union conference, teachers came to hear an update on their pay dispute.
The number of our members that rejected the government's pay offer is 191,319.
The union leaders called on the government to return to negotiations, but they also confirmed 2 more strike days.
We are calling further strike action on the 27th of April and the 2nd of May.
We want to say to parents that we don't want to take strike action and we don't want to cause disruption to exam preparation. So, we will be asking districts to make local arrangements for Year 11 and Year 13 pupils so that they will be in school being supported to prepare for their exams.
This is the offer for teachers' pay in England that has been rejected. £1,000 one-off payment on top of 5% for this year, 4.3% for most teachers next year, plus a £30,000 starting salary for new teachers being introduced. The strength of feeling here is obvious, even though this means more disruption for pupils.
The profession itself is furious. We're very, very angry at the offer. It's an insult to us.
We really struggle to get science teachers because people don't want to do the job anymore because, unfortunately, the amount of stress and workload for the level of pay that they're getting, we struggle to recruit in education.
Nobody takes strike action lightly. We're doing this for the good of our children in the long term.
At the heart of this is also a debate over school funding. £2.3 billion extra cash is going to schools in the next 2 years, and £500 million more next year to help towards pay. But there are other significant pressures too.
Energy bills, inflation on food, just the general cost, the increase, just as for everybody else, the prices have gone up incredibly high for schools.
This word is incredibly important.
With no settlement on pay, uncertainty and disruption lie ahead. Today, the Prime Minister said the rejected offer was fair.
In spite of all of that, and I said very reasonable offer on pay, the NEU union has rejected that, announced new strike dates, which will be enormously damaging to our children who have already suffered, their education has already suffered as a result of COVID, and in the run-up to exams, to hear about new strike dates in the face of what is a very reasonable pay offer.
Well, I'm disappointed that it's come to this, and I know many parents will be really worried about upcoming strikes. What I want to see is everybody getting around the table and resolving these issues. They can be resolved, and the sooner they're resolved, better.
There are 3 weeks before the next strike, but no immediate prospect of further talks. The pay review body for teachers will now consider next year.
That's Branwen Jeffries, and she joins us now from Harrogate. Branwen, many pupils and parents will be wondering how long these strikes might go on for.
Well, we have those 2 very definite dates for the summer term. And during the summer term, the mandate for the union runs out. So it would have to reballot to hold further strike action in the autumn. And there's every indication that if no progress is made, if there are no further talks, that the National Education Union is willing to do that. And other education unions are also currently considering the offer, and we have yet to hear what they want to do. But it's possible that at least one of them could also ballot for strike action. However, the government has said this is the best offer it can make within the current public finances. It is trying to balance fairness for teachers with the overall need to control inflation. And it argues that the offer it's made is fair and reasonable. That is not a point of view which has been accepted by union members here today.
Branwen, thank you very much. Branwen Jeffries there, our education editor. Meanwhile, more than 1,000 passport office workers have started 5 weeks of industrial action over pay, pensions and job security. Members of the PCS union are striking till the 5th of May with warnings of delays to new passports in the run-up to the summer holidays. Well, the Home Office says there's been a rise in the number of applications, but it has no plans to change the current guidance of a 10-week wait for a new passport. Our employment correspondent Zoe Conway reports.
This is what a day at the office is going to look like for the next 5 weeks for more than 1,000 passport office staff. They're on strike 6 days a week until May. Their union, the PCS, has set up a multi-million-pound strike fund, and it will be paying them a wage. 1,900 civil servants are directly involved in issuing passports. The union says more than 1,500 of them will go on strike. The union says there needs to be a dramatic improvement on last year's 2 to 3% pay rise and an increase this year that matches inflation.
We don't want there to be any disruption whatsoever. What would have been ideal for us is had there been some form of negotiation before things got to this point, and we'd be given an offer that our members felt was acceptable.
This is normally the busiest time of year for the service. It's when people apply to get their passports renewed in time for the holiday season.
I sent my passport off via post and I'm needing to go to Spain. My husband's Spanish and my children are half Spanish. We live in the UK, but we were meant to be going back to see his family and his friends in 2 weeks' time. And I'm just crossing my fingers that the passport's going to be back in time and I'll be able to join them.
A Home Office spokesperson said, "We're working to manage the impact of strike action with comprehensive contingency plans in place. There are currently no plans to change our guidance, which states that it takes up to 10 weeks to get a passport." Civil servants have struggled to get the same level of attention for their dispute as health workers and teaching staff. So far, there have been no negotiations with the government about pay. Zoe Conway, BBC News.
Officials at the port of Dover say the delays faced by thousands of holidaymakers trying to cross the Channel this weekend have cleared, and a critical incident has been stood down. Officials offered an apology and thanked people for their patience after some passengers reported waiting for more than 24 hours. A full review into what happened will now be carried out. A man will be sentenced today for the murder of 9-year-old Liverpool schoolgirl Olivia Pratt-Corbell. Thomas Cashman, who's 34, was found guilty last week of killing Olivia last August. Cashman shot her dead and wounded her mother as he chased a convicted drug dealer into their home. Our North of England correspondent Judith Moritz is at Manchester Crown Court for us this afternoon. Judith, what are we expecting to happen this afternoon?
Well, this will be the sentencing of Thomas Cashman, as you say, found guilty last week. And this is a case that many viewers will remember. It horrified the nation last August when it happened. The murder of a 9-year-old child in her own home, behind the front door of her own home, where she should have absolutely been safest. Horrified everybody. And then during this trial, we've heard the detail of how that came to happen, which has laid it out so starkly. That's been very traumatic for all of those hearing it. We've heard about the fact that this only happened because Tommy Cashman was chasing another drugs dealer through the streets of Liverpool. They saw the light from the open door of Olivia's house. The door had been opened by her mum, who wanted to know what the commotion was outside. They charged towards it, and Olivia herself was terrified at having heard gunfire outside, came out of bed and downstairs and was caught by a bullet. Now, we've listened here over several weeks to the background to all of this. It's laid bare the story of drugs and guns around the streets of Olivia's home. We expect the sentencing here to get underway just after 2 o'clock. You'll be able to watch it if you want. It'll be streamed live on the BBC News channel, and the judge's comments to be broadcast. And Olivia's family arrived here a short time ago. They've been dignified throughout all of this, and we expect that they may well speak outside court afterwards.
OK, Judith, thank you very much. Judith Morris reporting. And by the way, tonight, the Panorama programme we'll be looking at organised crime in Liverpool in the drug wars that killed Olivia. That's on BBC One tonight at 8 p.m. and also on BBC iPlayer. The Prime Minister is setting out plans for a new police task force to tackle grooming gangs. Specialist officers would be sent to help local police forces with their investigations as part of a drive to crack down on child sexual exploitation. Labour says the idea does not go far enough, while the Liberal Democrats want Rishi Sunak to focus on the backlog of cases in the courts. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent Tom Simons.
Carefully choreographed newspaper articles yesterday, and today a visit to the people who answer calls from children desperate for help. The Prime Minister and Home Secretary want local election voters to know they are tackling child abuse, specifically what they call grooming gangs.
We've had several independent inquiries look at the incidents here in Rochdale, but in Rotherham and Telford. And what's clear is that when victims and other whistleblowers came forward, their claims were often ignored by social workers, local politicians, or even the police. And the reason that they were ignored were due to cultural sensitivity and political correctness.
A new national task force will support police with a type of crime they've struggled to deal with. It's a problem captured by drama as well as news. Children often from troubled backgrounds, enticed into adult worlds and sexually abused by gangs of men. A tactic now well understood. The Home Secretary said it was abuse by gangs overwhelmingly made up of British Pakistani males. The Home Office clarified she was talking about 3 cases in Rochdale, Rotherham and Telford. Because last year a public inquiry found police have a startling lack of ethnic information.
They don't know how many of the children that they have recorded as being exploited in some way are actually being sexually exploited. They don't know the ethnicity of the people that might be exploiting them.
The government wants better data, but has been accused of focusing too much on race.
Ethnicity is important and nothing should get in the way of investigating, prosecuting child sexual exploitation. But if you look at the overall figure, that is, a relatively small element of it. That doesn't mean it's not to be dealt with, don't get me wrong, but if we are not clear about the full picture, then we won't have a proper response.
Thank you to the LSPCC for hosting us.
And this from the charity visited this morning.
It's really important that by raising an issue such as race, we don't create other blind spots, because for sure there are many predators who prey on vulnerable children who are from a range of cultural backgrounds.
Then they need to bring forward and conclude the online harms bill to tackle all the online grooming that happens, but also sort out the enormous backlogs that we have in the courts, so that when people are caught, that they can really be brought to justice.
The government has backed the main recommendation of the Child Abuse Public Inquiry, making it illegal not to report evidence of abuse, though it wants to hold a further consultation. Tom Simons, BBC News.
The NATO military alliance has confirmed that Finland will join the group tomorrow as its 31st member. Let's get more on this with our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale, who's with me now. This is a pretty big moment for NATO.
Yeah, great historic day. Jens Stoltenberg, the chief of NATO, said this morning the Finnish flag, will join the other 30 countries raised at NATO headquarters tomorrow. I think in significance terms, let's remember that Finland has one of the biggest borders with Russia. So that's another 800-mile border with Russia from a NATO country. It doubles the size of NATO countries bordering Russia, and it is exactly what President Putin did not want. He said he wanted less NATO before the war in Ukraine. What he's got is more NATO. It's important also because Finland is a country with a modern armed forces, didn't significantly cut defence spending. It's, for example, buying more than 60 of these latest F-35 stealth jets. It is investing in defence. It will meet the 2% of GDP spent on defence. The one problem, of course, for NATO is that they wanted both Finland and Sweden to join. So whereas the Turkish parliament last month, the last obstacle, approved Finland's membership, it has not done so for Sweden. So they are still waiting for Sweden. Jens Stoltenberg says he is still confident Sweden will join the alliance too, making it 32.
Yeah, OK, Jonathan, thank you very much. Jonathan Beale there, our defence correspondent. Well, Russian investigators have detained a 26-year-old woman after the murder of a military blogger who strongly supported Russia's war in Ukraine. Vladlen Tatarsky died in an explosion at a cafe in the city of St. Petersburg. He'd been given a statuette just before the blast, and there is speculation an explosive device could have been hidden inside. Let's get more on this from our Moscow reporter, Will Vernon. Will, a lot of mystery surrounding this case. What's the latest?
That's right, quite a lot of updates from here today. What we know so far is that Daria Trepova, a 26-year-old woman from St. Petersburg, was detained by Russian authorities today in connection or on suspicion of involvement in yesterday's explosion. This is the blast, as you said, that killed Vladimir Tatarsky, a well-known pro-Kremlin military blogger. And reports indicate that shortly before the blast, Mr. Tatarsky was handed a statuette and that possibly the explosives were hidden in that. Now, we don't know to what extent Ms. Trepova is considered a suspect. Russian police have released a video in which she appears to admit that she took the statuette to the cafe, although the BBC can't be sure that she wasn't under duress when she made those comments. Now, we've heard from the Russian National Anti-Terrorism Committee. They said that Ukrainian intelligence agencies planned this attack. That's something that Kiev has denied. And that also people were involved linked to Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader, quite a strange claim. So I think that this will worry many ordinary Russians who will see this as the latest in a string of incidents, in Russia, explosions, drone attacks, that kind of thing. Many people will be left with the impression that the war is getting closer and closer to their homes.
OK, Will, thank you very much. Will Vernon, our Moscow reporter. And the time is just 18 minutes past 1. Our top story this lunchtime. More strikes in schools in England after teachers overwhelmingly reject the government's new pay offer. And coming up, fear of reprisals by loan sharks is stopping many vulnerable people asking for help. That's according to a new report.
Coming up on the BBC News Channel, a new nationwide policy introduced in German amateur football allows transgender and non-binary players to choose if they play in men's or women's teams. BBC Sport travelled to Berlin to see the policy in action.
A new trial run by the Football Association says grassroots referees feel more confident and safer if they wear body cams during matches. It comes after hundreds of amateur referees in England told the BBC they feared for their safety on the pitch. Well, around 100 refs have been using the body cam equipment since the trial began in February. Our correspondent Jane Dougal has been to see how it's working.
Afternoon, lads. So obviously I've got the body camera on today. So what will happen if I need to switch this camera on? I will announce I'm activating the camera.
In the first of its kind in the world, Sophie Wood is one of 100 grassroots referees taking part in a body cam technology trial. The aim is to see if they can improve the behaviour of players and coaches.
It means that I've got that safety net there. If anything was to cross that line for me, I'm able to switch the camera on. It captures, it starts recording from that moment. It also captures the 30 seconds beforehand, so then context can really be gained around the situation that you've switched it on.
Many worry that when incidents like this one are broadcast on television, the behaviour can be copied at a grassroots level.
The professional game, of course, are very aware of the fact that they are often seen as the example and that people can aspire to the behaviour seen, and they are working collaboratively with the Football Association to ensure that actually they are also addressing poor behaviour from the coaches, the players. So hopefully, if we do this united, we'll get some really positive results.
In February, a BBC questionnaire found that out of almost 1,000 referees who responded, just under 300 said they'd been physically abused by spectators, players or managers. One of the 4 leagues in the country where the trial is being rolled out is Middlesbrough, where 19-year-old referee Ollie Kearney has already used the equipment in matches.
I'm a player.
Yeah.
You're the referee. I come up to talk to you, and you worry that I might start abusing you.
If I feel threatened in any way, so I'll press that button, and then they can actually see the player, their face on the screen.
Do you think also if the player sees themselves on that screen, that will stop them from shouting or pushing you or anything like that?
100%, yeah. I think they see themselves and they'll probably realise they're in the wrong straight away and they'll step back from it.
And have you actually noticed a difference then?
A little bit, yeah. It's fair enough for them to say, come on ref, shouldn't be a foul against me. But that's about it really, that's all they'll say. They won't go any further with it, and I think that's partly because of the camera.
We can't show body cam footage from this match because there weren't any abusive incidents. The FA will track the impact of body cams across the participating leagues, which also include Liverpool, Worcester and Essex. If they see positive results, then it may become the norm for grassroots referees to wear one, and easier to name and shame those who might want to abuse them. Jane Dougal, BBC News, Middlesbrough.
Residents in a South London block are considering legal action against the housing association Peabody after their neighbour lay dead for 2.5 years before her body was found, despite their efforts to raise the alarm. Harry Farley has this report.
2.5 years after Sheila Celeoni is thought to have died, police broke down the door of her flat.
I've not seen her for years.
Inside, they found a tidy, clean apartment and the remains of a woman they could only identify by her dental records. Sheila was deeply isolated. She had no family she was in touch with, no friends turned up to her funeral. Neighbours like Audrey Parole say that for months they had been trying to raise the alarm with their housing association, Peabody.
For the first, I'd say, year and a half, you couldn't stand in this hallway because just the smell was just like nauseous, it just made you sick.
14 months after Sheila died, police did come and do a welfare check here. On that first visit, they didn't enter the flat, and a mistake by a police operator meant Peabody was told that Sheila had been seen alive and well. The Metropolitan Police apologised. It would be more than a year later that Sheila's body was eventually found. But her neighbours blame Peabody, who they say failed to listen when they raised concerns and missed multiple opportunities to find Sheila in the first year after she died.
There was always this gut feeling that something had happened to her. It was just devastating to know that she was there all along. I don't think Peabody actually realised how much it's affected us. And we're still living in that sort of devastation and trauma. I literally face Sheila's flat every day I leave my house. I'm reminded of what's happened, and it could have been avoided.
Peabody said they are trying to move Sheila's neighbours, but there is a desperate shortage of social housing in London. In a statement, the organisation said they were devastated by what happened. They accepted that in the first year after Sheila died, they didn't do enough, and said they had put in new ways of working since Sheila was found. They added the case raises important questions for wider society. Harry Farley, BBC News.
People being targeted by loan sharks are worried about asking for help because they fear reprisals, according to a new report. The Centre for Social Justice estimates that more than 1 million people in England may be in debt to illegal money lenders. Emma Glusby reports.
It's early morning in Bradford.
Police, open up!
Supported by police, the illegal money lending team is targeting a suspected loan shark thought to have been intimidating vulnerable people. A man's been arrested and his home is being searched. This type of enforcement is happening every week because loan sharks can leave people terrified.
It's not a community service. It is criminals getting rich on the backs of those that can least afford it. And that's what we see time and time again. We know that illegal lending is going on across all our communities, and we're always concerned in a cost of living issue that this has potential to grow, and certainly in areas where there might be some deprivation. We've seen illegal lenders operating who exploit.
And this is just one estate where loan sharks have been befriending and then exploiting people struggling with the cost of living. In Stradbroke in Sheffield, it's an ongoing problem that's causing misery.
We've had illegal money lenders on this estate for as long as I can remember. It's quite an easy trap to get into. You've got nowhere else to go. So where would you get money from if you're really skint and you need money? You've got no choice.
Helen is part of the Link Community Hub on this estate, a charity helping with food parcels, counselling and debt advice. Things are difficult here.
At the moment, poverty is overwhelming. It overwhelms us. We've never seen poverty levels as extreme as we're seeing at the moment. They're having to cut down on food. They're going without food. They're going without the prescriptions. Legal moneylenders will know that, won't they? It'll be a fantastic time for them. They couldn't wish for a better time. And as I said, they come onto the estates, they befriend people who haven't got any alternatives than to use them.
Here, they've seen the misery and anxiety caused by loan sharks and the fear, a fear that means people are afraid to talk about it. This woman's words are spoken by an actor.
I owe him a lot. I get my universal credit and it nearly all goes to him. I have to go and borrow off my family and they get fed up with me asking. If I don't pay, I'll get a beating off him. But it's my family. I don't want them getting hurt by him.
The Centre for Social Justice estimates that more than 1 million people in England are in debt to loan sharks, but they're often reluctant to report them, making investigations that much harder. Emma Glasby, BBC News.
Now, 50 years ago today, on a street corner in New York, a phone call was made that changed modern life across the planet. The first ever call from a mobile phone. Well, our technology editor Zoe Kleinman has been talking to the man who made that historic call back in 1973.
Mobile phones. We love them. The UN estimates 3/4 of the world's population owns a mobile phone, and there are more mobiles than people in the United Kingdom, according to the industry's trade body. This man helped make it all happen. Marty Cooper was an engineer at Motorola. On the 3rd of April 1973, on a street corner in New York, he made the world's first public mobile phone call.
I was on 6th Avenue demonstrating this cell phone. I took out my phone book. That gives you an idea what primitive times these were. And I called my counterpart in the Bell system, a fellow named Joel Engel. I dialed his number. And amazingly, he answered. And I said, Joel, I'm calling you his cell phone, but a real cell phone, a personal, handheld, portable cell phone. Silence on the other end of the line. I think he was gritting his teeth.
Well, there's some real icons from the mobile phone kind of timeline here.
Ben Wood knows all about the history of mobile phones. He has his own collection.
So here we have really a true icon, the Motorola Dynatac 8000X, the first truly hand-portable mobile phone, conceived in 1973 when the first phone call was made on a prototype of this, launched eventually in 1984, and that device cost about $4,000 at the time, which would be about £9,500 today.
£9,000. And it's pretty heavy again. What's the battery life like, dare I ask?
The battery life on that was about 30 minutes. It would take about 10 hours to charge. Had a standby of around a similar time as well.
Wow.
So what does Marty think about the future of phones?
We are still at the very beginning of the cell phone revolution. We are going to eliminate poverty because we are becoming more productive because of the cell phone. And I just mentioned we're going to eliminate disease. Our educational system is going to be revolutionized. I think all of these things are potentials that the cell phone is going to not do it by itself, but it will be an essential part of this great future.
Zoe Kleinman, BBC News.
Right, let's see what's happening with the weather. The latest forecast for you from Elizabeth Rizzini, and nice blue skies there.
Certainly are, Ben. Yes, it's a gorgeous day of weather outside for the vast majority of us. Look at these Weather Watcher pictures captured by our weather watchers in North East England, in North Wales and finally in Edinburgh. Plenty of blue sky and some spring sunshine around, of course. And of course, the sunshine's got a bit more kick to it at this time of year, so it will feel pleasantly warm in the best of that. It was a rare commodity in March, but lots of it around at the moment, and it is set to continue tomorrow, but it will turn cloudier from the north and the west, and that's because there's a weather front just here. It's quite far out towards the west today, but it is throwing a bit more cloud across Northern Ireland, maybe 1 or 2 showers here. We're dominated by high pressure towards the east, and that is giving us a bit more of a breeze, an onshore breeze for North Sea facing coast, so always cooler here, but lots of sunshine, some high cloud across Scotland, turning the sunshine hazy. Could be some patchy cloud through the afternoon, temperatures peaking between 10 and 14 Celsius, maybe a 15 though for the Moray Firth. Now, with all of that sunshine around, you might will find yourself sneezing, and this could be the reason why the tree pollen season has started and levels are moderate across England and Wales. Now, overnight tonight, our weather front out towards the north and the west is gradually pushing its way a little further eastwards. It's cloudier, breezier, therefore milder for Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but lots of clear skies elsewhere, and temperatures across England, eastern Wales in particular, are likely to drop just slightly below freezing. So there will be another frost into tomorrow morning. Now, this is the position of the weather front on Tuesday. It's gradually moving further eastwards, sending some more cloud into eastern areas of Scotland. The lion's share of the sunshine, again, for much of England and Wales, and it will feel a little warmer again towards the North Sea facing coast than it is today. Top temperatures between 12 and 15 degrees Celsius as we head through Tuesday. And then this is Wednesday, so our weather front has now progressed a little further eastwards, could give some outbreaks of rain, some of which could be heavy out towards the western half of the UK. Some clearance across Northern Ireland by the end of the afternoon, the rain not reaching southeast England until the end of the day. Temperatures on a par with the rest of the week. And of course, our weather front continues eastwards, stalls, could give some heavy persistent rain through the day on Thursday towards eastern areas this time. But look at this. High pressure is building in from the south, so it's all good news from me as we head into the Easter bank holiday weekend. Good Friday, Saturday and possibly Sunday, all looking dry. There will be some sunshine, a bit more cloud around than today. We could see some rain on bank holiday Monday. Ben.
Elizabeth, thank you. And a reminder of our top story this lunchtime. More strikes are planned for schools in England after teachers overwhelmingly rejected the government's pay offer. And that's it from me on BBC One Now. We'll join the BBC's news teams where you are. Have a very good afternoon.